Okay, we're going to go ahead and get started today. Again, thank you for everyone joining today. We're really excited to have Kelly from OneCause with us. Kelly, you doing okay today?
I am. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. So Kelly, we've been working with OneCause now for a while. We just went to their Raise conference here a few weeks ago and had a great time. And while we were there, we spoke about having them come on and really start to talk about this topic of year-end fundraising, and some easy online tools and strategies you can use to make the most of your year end. And so, um, just a couple quick housekeeping notes. If you've joined our webinars before, then you know that we record the webinar, and we've got that recording so we can send that out to you at the end of the webinar so you can share it with your staff or your friends and family, whoever you'd like to share it with. And also, you'll know that we really enjoy answering as many questions as we can at the end. So as we go through the webinar, you'll see in your GoToWebinar control panel a questions tab. Jump on in there, ask questions as we go, and we will ask Kelly as many questions as we can. So to tell you a little bit about Kelly, she brings over 20 years of fundraising and nonprofit management and sales and marketing experience to her role there as the VP of Content Marketing. I just had the ability to spend a few days with Kelly in Chicago at their Raise conference, and I can tell you just from spending a little bit of time with her, it's clear how passionate she is about helping nonprofits, help them raise more money, and helping them ultimately, see their mission out. And so, Kelly, thanks again for being with us, and I'm going to just go ahead and pass it over to you and let you take it from here.
Great. Thanks, Bradley. Super excited. Thanks again to Kindful for letting me hop on the webinar and talk about one of my favorite topics, which is year-end fundraising. I'm going to apologize in advance to everybody if I cough. I'm getting over one of those fall colds. I will do my best to not cough into the microphone, but if it does, please excuse me. But I think today what we're going to talk about is not just year-end fundraising, but how can you put in some strategies in play to help you get the most out of any year-end campaign that you have, and then just sharing some of the easy online tools that nonprofits can use to help reach more donors and raise more money, because technology is really becoming a part of day-to-day donor expectations. We just got done with a survey where I think one of the number one motivators to giving was a fast and easy and seamless donation process. So we'll talk a little bit about how you can use technology as well in your campaigns. Oops. Let's go ahead and get started. The agenda, we'll keep it loose, very conversational. As Bradley said, we'll take questions at the end. I'll talk about a little bit about year-end and online giving 101. Sharing some of the trends that are out there, and then obviously sharing tips, and then talking about the tools, and then we'll wrap up with the Q&A. As Bradley said, I am the VP of Content Marketing Engagement at OneCause. For those that may not recognize the name OneCause, we are BidPal, or we're BidPal, went through rebranding in January. But I have the pleasure of talking a ton about fundraising. I actually come at this from your side of the table, was a director of development at a private school in Chicago. I've sat on a ton of nonprofit boards, and just love sharing ideas and talking with people about how we make fundraising easier with technology and best practices. So as we said, OneCause was BidPal. We're on our 10th year, so a ton of thought leadership, a ton of trends, and just a ton of client stories that we try to leverage and share out with all audiences. Excuse me, but as I said, this year we're going to talk about year-end giving and just the 101. This is the basics around year-end giving, but I always like to start with a poll. And so Bradley, if you guys want to go ahead and launch a poll, let's say, how confident are you in your ability to engage donors at year-end? Love to just hear from you guys. It helps me kind of frame some discussions and talk.
So we'll keep the poll open here for just maybe another 15 seconds. It looks about like 65% of the folks who are on have no, and now 72% have actually put in their submission here. So Kelly, what I'm going to do is close the poll now, and then I will share the results, and hopefully you can see they're there. So what's your thought about those where 43% say they're somewhat confident?
You know what? That doesn't surprise me. I think, we all feel like urine's one of these games or these the seasonality of our fundraising business that we need to get into, but we're never really super confident in how we're engaging our not just our current donors, but new donors. And always, I think, in search of new tools and tips. So this is great. For those of you super confident, hopefully you can give me some stumper questions at the end, and we will definitely continue to talk about what's new in the world of year-end fundraising. Just to see, when we talk about year-end fundraising, it used to be back in the day, we all got our direct mail appeals out there, our letters. We pushed things out. We did some website fundraising, and then we did a lot of, personal asks. I'm not saying that that has gone away at all. You want to have a diversified fundraising campaign when you do year end, and so direct mail and website appeals, they all still have a place. But this world of online giving is really taking off. And this is the idea of expanding beyond just the website and creating fundraising pages, really using mobile fundraising to attract new donors. And you've just seen that online giving is up year over year, and really just it's growing. I think as we used to say that there was a generational divide in online giving, that really it was the younger generations. We are seeing here at OneCause that it doesn't matter if you're a boomer, you're a Gen X, Gen Y, Gen Z, you want an easy way 24/7, 365 to give when you want to give, and not necessarily be restricted in your own flexibility for your own giving. So really just some trends to share with you that we're seeing, and I'll wait for the slide to catch up here. But really, when we talk about year end is, Neon CRM, I think it's fascinating some of the stuff that they're putting out. There's a ton of thought leadership out there, but orgs are starting now. Half of the orgs are planning their year end campaigns in November. So if you haven't started, deep breath, you're not out of the norm. Really what we're seeing is that millennials, I thought this was an interesting trend that 33% of millennials want to be engaged in peer-to-peer campaigns for year end. And what that means is not only thinking online, but thinking about ways that we can leverage social networks in our giving. And I think, again, as I said earlier, online now also means mobile. If your sites aren't mobily optimized, it's something you want to look at. But, 50% of people are going to visit your donation appeals from their phones. So let's talk a little bit more about some tips around online. Now that we know that our donors, they want to be there, they want something that they can engage in, as I said, 24/7, 365. What are the ways in which you can really attract them, engage them, and then actually activate them into giving? Well, now's the time for year-end giving, as we talked about. I mean, it's definitely here. So what can we do over the course of the next, 30 days to make the most of that? Tip one, I think, is really something that we talk about a lot at OneCause is your campaigns have to be inspirational. Now, again, I'm probably not going to tell you anything that you haven't thought about, but this idea of if you're designing your campaign and when you're designing your campaign, how are you humanizing it, right? You hear these stories a lot, or these buzzwords going around in nonprofit fundraising right now, like humanize your brand, engage in storytelling, connect it to your mission. And those are all incredibly important, and they should be a part of the number one thing that you do when you sit down to plan your campaign is, how am I going to connect people to my cause? Is it going to be through my story? Is it going to be through images? And that's what humanization is really putting a face to your ask and putting a face to your brand. What images are you going to use? How are you going to keep it visual? And that's the thing that we're seeing as a big trend this year. It started a couple years ago, but really the use of imagery, the use of keeping campaigns very visual and not very copy heavy is a trend that is really become mainstream this year in year-end fundraising, and we're encouraging all causes, as you sit down again, figure out what's that story you're going to tell, how you're going to grab the attention of the 50 asks that are out there for your single donor. How is your brand, your cause, your year-end campaign going to stand out? Okay. The next thing, tip number 2, that we always like to talk about is impact. So now you've created in tip number 1, you've created this idea of like, how am I going to inspire my donors? The next thing is, how am I going to show impact? And why are those 2 things important? You have to connect them to your mission. You have to get them, engaged, inspired by your cause, but you have to directly connect that to impact. And what does that mean? It means telling them what is their gift going to do. And a lot of times, what we're seeing out there is that these single donor gift appeals are working very effectively. And what does that mean? For a single gift of $5, for a single gift of $25, your donation will do X. When you have those impact statements, when you can really quantify very clearly in your letter, in your online site, on your webpage, what the donations are going towards and what the monetary amount will achieve for your cause or in the life of the people that you support, that needs to go hand in hand with creating inspiration. And this idea of social proof is getting your donors to talk on social media about also how they're giving. There's this, the world of viral communication around social media is huge in the year-end campaigns. If you can find donors, a couple of them, to get out there and talk about how they're giving to you, if they want to, what they gave and the impact that it shows, there's nothing like me talking to my networks to get you, to get more people engaged in the cause. Okay. So we've, in tip number 1, created inspiration, visual images. We've talked a little bit about impact and directly correlating that, making sure that the impact statements are part of what you're doing in your appeal. The next thing is amplification. And that's just a fancy word for saying, how can I get my ask, whether it's a year-end appeal, an annual fund campaign drive, a Giving Tuesday appeal, how can I get that in the in front of the most amount of donors as possible? One thing that we're really talking about a ton at OneCause, and we're talking about it right now in relation to gala fundraising, but you can use it as well for year-end appeals and year-end fundraising, is find ambassadors. This concept of ambassador fundraising, it goes hand in hand with the social proof that I talked about earlier. Find 5 people, find 10 people in your community, volunteers, active volunteers, board members, regular givers, and ask them to be ambassadors. Ask them to promote on social media for you about your year-end appeal. Ask them to promote daily, weekly, whatever they're comfortable with. But if you can find a group of ambassadors to galvanize around it, now instead of just the eyes that are on in your donor database, you've got the eyes for all the people that those people are connected to. It's really talking about social listening and using ambassadors on social media, which is super easy for them. Again, this doesn't, you're not going to require them to have a heavy lift. You're going to simply require and ask them on a daily basis that they share out on their social channels about your appeal, about how they're participating, about what the funds go to, about your mission, and keep that communication going. We're seeing LinkedIn become a big social broadcast network over the course of the last year, Twitter as well. Extending beyond Facebook so that people are engaging not just their own friend channels, but their professional channels as well. And I'd say you have to make social easy. We'll talk about some of the ways that you can use online tools to make social easy. But whether you're asking your ambassadors, or when you ask your ambassadors to fundraise for you, be sure that you're giving them all the tools that they need: graphics, links to CTAs, links to your giving pages, links to your website. If you can even create the posts for them and make it turnkey, you will see much better engagement. And then a trend that we talk about a ton at OneCause, especially when you're doing galas and you're looking at, or golf outings or anything around a fundraising event, the idea of gamification has caught on, but you can use gamification in your annual appeals. You can use gamification in year-end fundraising. And what does that mean? Create challenges. get contests going, get matches going, foster that competitive spirit, that same competitive spirit that will drive an item that's worth $100 in an auction up to $300. That same competitive spirit will also fuel your year-end campaign. And so what we're seeing with a lot, the traditional use of this is, a match donation. For every dollar raised in the next 24 hours, we have a gift that's going to match that 2-to-1. And incredibly effective, especially the closer you get to year end, and closer you get to the close of your campaign. But do contests. I see schools doing contests all the time, doing classroom fundraising for year end appeals, doing alumni challenges, finding creative ways to get larger swaths of the base involved. You can, create the challenges don't have to be complicated either. And I get this question a lot. Do I need to run my challenge for a month? You can. It's even more effective if you can create a couple different challenges over the course of your campaign. And the closer you get to year end, running challenges for 48, 24 hours, just like we used to do in the old telethon days. The same kind of work, the same mentality works very well for online fundraising. But competition and making it fun are definitely a key to seeing increased results in 2018. And then finally, making it easy. Again, I said we're going to be coming out with a research study in the coming months, but one of the things that we were surprised about is how big the motivation is for completing a gift when it's easy for a donor. And what they mean by that is they want to be able to click and give, right? So not gone are the days of filling out a donor card. That still applies, especially if you're skewing to, an older donation audience. But a lot of people want to give by their phones. Remember that stat that 50% will engage with your annual appeal or your Giving Tuesday campaign on their phone. You got to make it easy. I always say if it can be a 3-step process, I click on a link, I go to a donation page, I make my donation. You will see a much bigger share of wallet and a much higher level of completed donations. People are, this whole idea of mobile experience, it's huge, right? Again, think about, I think there's a stat out there that, the average American has their phone within arm's length of them for, 97% of the day. We're rarely without our phones. And when the inspiration gives and moves us and you've shown the impact, and they're on social media and they've got the ambassadors talking about your cause, they want to give right there. So don't discount the mobile experience. Make sure that you've got a way for them to easily give on their phones, and very clear CTAs. When we, for those that don't know what a CTA is, call to action, we need to make sure that those are very clear and prominent in every campaign, so that when somebody's on their phone or they're online on a website or they're on your web page, that you have a CTA that says give now, donate here, donate now. There's nothing worse to driving an incomplete donation, like people having to scroll around your site or scroll around on their phone to find out how and where to give. I was just talking the other day to somebody we were talking about CTAs, and so we're seeing a lot of use of colors this year in CTAs, yellows, blues, greens, not seeing a ton of reds, but if you can even take your CTA, your call to action buttons, and make them stand out with color, grab attention from people, it's really another tip to effective online donations. Okay, so we've talked about online donations. I've talked a lot about technology and this expectation from the donor, right? Donors are sophisticated. We use our phones all the time to order food and book travel, and communicate with our networks. We also want it to be, we want to use it for completing donations and making it easy. So how can you, again, at OneCause, this is what we do. We connect nonprofits to easy to use technology. How can you think about some of the trends out there, whether it's, our products or other products? There's a whole marketplace of online tools, but I encourage everyone, November is not too late to think about how to incorporate technology into your campaigns. And let's talk a little bit about what some of those options might include. I always tell everybody, I get a lot of questions when at conferences or talking to nonprofit fundraisers, like what technology should I get? You know, what should I purchase? And I always bring it back to the cause. And it's like, well, what's your focus, right? What do you want to, what are you trying to achieve? Are you trying to get in a year-end giving campaign that might be a little bit longer? Are you trying to do a one-day Giving Tuesday appeal? Do you want to leverage, you know, awareness days or months? You know, is this a disaster relief initiative? Like, what's your focus? Because that's really going to drive the type of technology that's going to be best to suit your fundraising efforts. But assuming that, you know, you're focused on those top two, which is you're in fundraising and you're Giving Tuesday, fast and easy. Again, this is a form, and my goal here is not to sell a product. It's around education. Is, you know, when you're looking at products, when you're even looking at the own products that you might have, is what does my form look like? Is it fast and easy? Can somebody click, you know, quickly get to a donation, fill in their information, and be done? Isn't mobilely optimized? Why would I want to look at an online tool? Meaning, can I pick it up on my phone and do the same thing that I can do on my computer? And is it fast and easy on my phone, just like it is on the computer? That has to be part of your online giving strategy, is that mobile phone donation capture. And I think one of the things that, you know, is a big why for online tools, why would you want to incorporate it, is you will get proven conversions. And what does that mean? Is a conversion is a donor starting a form and completing the form all the way through to donation. What you see with some tools that aren't mobilely optimized or aren't fast and easy is that, you know, you can lose, you know, upwards of more than half of your donors who visit your page don't complete the form. So you want to try to make sure that you're using an online tool, because if you make it fast and easy, they'll give, and you can convert more donors. Even if you're converting at the $10 and $25 range, you're capturing people who wouldn't have been able to give before, or might not have given had you not made it easy through technology. And then I think this is a big important thing when we talk about year-end fundraising. Donors want to know that they're giving through a secure platform. So just making sure that PCI compliance is part of any, you know, package that you're looking at, and that you're also talking about that to your donors, that they know that it's not only fast and easy and they can do it from their phone, but it's safe and it's secure. So we're seeing a ton of donation pages come up, and that's what you see right here in this example is, you know, creating technology to create your own page. This is the Autism Society of Texas, right? They've got a little bit about the cause. They've got a form. They've got a page. They're using this in their social promotion. They're going to use it in their mail appeal. They'll use it in email blasts, newsletters, the website. The idea is drive people to a singular donation page and capture those conversions in one spot. Here's what it looks like on a phone. This is, again, an example of our technology, is that you can get a click, you'll get a link texted to your phone. This is a text to give solution. Take you right to a donation page. You secure your amount, you put in your information, you click donate, and boom, you're done. I think this is just another example, trying to give as many examples as possible of what it might look like if you take your technology, if you take your year-end or your Giving Tuesday appeal online. These are different online and donation forms. Again, what we're seeing here, if you go back to those tips that we talked about, those top 5 tips, we're seeing keeping it visual, humanizing the brand in every single one of these pictures, right? Telling a story about what the money is going to, gamifying it head over here with a progress meter so people know that their donation is going to a total goal. But this idea that right here in one spot, I come in, I'm engaged, I see the cause, I know what I can give, I know where they are, I click donate now, boom, my gift is made and I'm done. I think these are just other samples if you're out there looking at technology of things that groups are doing. So these that I just showed you, these two over here, those are donation pages, right? But you don't have to do a donation page. Say you already have your own site, right? And you're like, I don't want to go through the creation of a standalone page. You can do what's called inline and modal donation forms as well. So when somebody's on your site, up pops a donation form, up pops away right there in line in your site for them to quickly and easily give without having to go to another location. Again, another example, you could have this right in your site, right embedded within your site. People come to your organization page, and right here is a click now donation tool for them to make a year-end gift or a Giving Tuesday donation. Again, just other samples. This is a text to give, mobile donations. A lot of groups will do this as opposed to donation pages. They want something where they can text out to their donor base. Their donors get a link. They click on it. It takes them right to a donation page. They complete a quick and easy PCI compliant donation form, and boom, they're done. What's the difference between a text to give that I am showing you now and all those donation pages that I showed you earlier, donation pages and inline forms? Text to give is really you pushing out a request through mobile technology to your donors, you giving them a link that comes to their phone and them completing a donation. Donation pages are them finding a URL or them clicking on something on your website or on social media and going there. So it's really one is a push and the other text to give is pulling the donors in through technology. And happy to take questions later on the differences in technology if you guys have them. So really, you know, I always love to share success stories with people. You know, about how quickly you can mobilize around online donations. And this is the Autism Society of Texas. During the Hurricane Harvey disaster, they decided that they needed a way to help. They wanted the folks in Austin wanted to help Hurricane Harvey families with autistic children because what was happening in the shelters is it was incredibly loud, and while it was a place to seek refuge, it wasn't an ideal environment for you know, kids with autism. So what they wanted to do is quickly mobilize their base, throw up an online page so that they could raise funds for like soundproofing, basically headphones and packages that they could ship to these centers so that people with autism and families with autism could still stay in those shelters. And quickly and easily, they spun up the site, online giving site. They were able to raise 121% of goal and get that site up in just a matter of hours. So when we talk technology, it doesn't need to be cumbersome. It shouldn't be when you're looking out there. I think one of the questions to ask is how fast can I get this site spun up, right? How long is it going to take me to get it spun up, and how many people? Because we often don't have huge, you know, development teams in house. So looking for that quick, easy tool that's not only just quick and easy for our donors, but quick and easy for our fundraising teams to execute is incredibly important. And again, just a real life example of being able to go online in a fast way and show impact and make connections with your donors. Okay, I think with that, we are ready for some Q&A.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Kelly. That was really helpful and a lot of really great information. Again, if you do have a question, we'd love for you to dive in here and jump in and ask the questions. So Kelly, while we see if we get a couple questions in on the control panel, I was wondering, you know, you talked a lot about like the mobile giving and things like that and some of the stats around that. Are you guys seeing more people like in the nonprofit space take that more seriously? And what are you, you know, what kind of uptick are you seeing people receive by going, you know, taking on that kind of technology?
Yeah, I mean, the question of are nonprofits embracing it? Absolutely. I think we're seeing year over year more and more nonprofits do. It's hard to say the total impact and uptick that we'll see in 2018 because many nonprofits are just getting underway right now. But what we saw last year was I forget the exact percentage, but it was a dramatic increase, cause over cause, for those going online when they compared their campaign versus the prior year. And here's the thing is that the stats, and I don't have the stats in front of me, but what we saw the uptick in is not necessarily the large major donations. Those are still going to come from your personal ask, let's be honest. But where nonprofits are seeing the biggest boon from mobile tools is in the mid-range donations and actually the lower end donations for attracting first-time donations, meaning you're going to get whatever your lower end spectrum is. Let's say you're a group that does $25 as your lowest donation amount. You will see more people come in at those lower levels who are brand new first-time donors, giving you a new pool of people then to engage in the cause. So I think that's one of the benefits of mobile technology or even online technology is that you're going to be able to, again, especially if you engage ambassadors, you're going to be able to attract a new group of donors who otherwise wouldn't have given before.
Okay. We had a couple questions come in here. We have one that was asking, do you have any suggestions for a very early stage nonprofit or a small nonprofit, ways that they can start to go down this path that's really cost effective or free, and specifically was asking more about peer-to-peer and text to give.
Yeah, text to give, I think if you want to get in, and I'll just use our solution as the price point. Our text to give package is $495. Use it all year round for as many campaigns as you want to. So from a cost effective standpoint, that's probably the lowest barrier to entry tool for any nonprofit. I mean, you can look, I think, there's a ton of fundraising going on Facebook too. So if you want to stay single channel and just do a social promotion, you can look at Facebook. But text to give technology is definitely very, very cost effective.
Okay, and then we had another question on, so how do you suggest collecting your donors' cell phone numbers to do a text ask?
Yeah, that's a good question. So you can do it in a couple ways, right? And if you're using event fundraising software for your gala, you should already have them. Hopefully you have some kind of donor database. Obviously Kindful being, one that you can tap into. Hopefully you do have your cell phone numbers collected. If you don't, you can simply ask them to text in, and that's the beauty of text to give. So everybody is given a keyword, so you choose your keyword. Let's say yours is autism, and you can put out on all your promotional materials, right? Text autism to 42735, right? If they text in with that keyword, it automatically goes to your donation page. So you don't necessarily have to have everybody's cell phone number. They can opt in, and that's the beauty of text to give by simply texting in a specific keyword.
Okay, great. And then there was two questions that were kind of similar. One was, that there's some concerns about like the privacy and stuff that goes on around text to give and using people's text information. And another person asked, do you need them to opt in? How are you guys advising people on that? I mean, I know there's really specific rules about opt-in permissions around email, but when it comes to text messaging, how do you guys advise your customers on those things?
Yeah, that's where we say that pick a keyword, right? Let them opt in for it. So pick your keyword that goes with your campaign, and in every social channel you have, every promotional channel, whether it's direct mail, your letter, your website, signs in the carpool line if you're a school, pick your keyword and broadcast that out and let them opt in. If you're worried about privacy or any of that, the keyword opt-in feature is the best way to go.
Okay, great.
Okay.
Well, Kelly, thank you again for your time today. I think we have one more survey question, right, that we were wanting to ask before everyone jumps off. So we can go ahead and launch that poll real quick. And that's just, would you like more information on an online giving solution? So I'm going to launch that. If you would just click yes. If you're not interested, just click no, and we'll move on. So we'll give everybody just a few minutes here to answer that question. And while they're doing that, Kelly, again, thank you so much for taking the time to join us today and share this information as we're going into this time of year where people really need to be thinking about their end of year giving.
Yeah, absolutely. It was a pleasure. Thank you so much for having me on here. And for those who want to, visit and get more information, because I know I threw a lot at you guys today, you can visit us at onecause.com, where we talk all about the different ways that you can utilize mobile and online solutions for not just year-end, but year-round fundraising.
And great. So if anyone responded to that, looks like a handful of people responded yes. We'll make sure that our teams get in touch with you, with the OneCause team, and we'll get in touch with you and see if there's anything that they can help you with. And so again, Kelly, thank you, and then everyone out there, thank you for taking the time to spend your day with us. We know you're busy and you've got a lot to do and typically a lot on your plate, but we hope that this was informational, and we'll look forward to seeing you on our next webinar. So I hope you have a great afternoon and happy fundraising, everyone.
Happy fundraising. Thank you.
Thank you, Kelly.